Hi, it's Don Southerton, and welcome back. This week's I've titled the episode Gazing Back, a Look Forward. 2016 in retrospect, 2017 before us. Let's go ahead and get started. From a string of weekly trips to OC, Irvine, California, home to U.S. headquarters of Hyundai Motor, Kia Motors, Genesis, Mobis Parts, InOcean, and Hyundai Capital, to somewhat longer trips to Vegas dealer shows, New York and LA auto shows, Hatchie R&D in Ann Arbor, KMMG manufacturing and Tier 1s in Georgia, and Hyundai in Canada, and even longer trips to Seoul. In 2016, I supported leadership across Korean OEMs and their affiliates. This said, it was a challenging year for both Western and Korean overseas teams. Bluntly, we felt the frustration, the common thread, the need to hit steep sales targets. Now, layered on top was mounting anxiety from South Korea over a declining export economy and weakening won, not to mention the political scandals that touched the heart of the Korean groups. Their chairman called in to the National Assembly and probed if pressured to contribute monies in exchange for special presidential treatment. Sadly, we also saw the abrupt exit of Hyundai Motor America CEO David Zuchowski, our longtime friend who we advise on all things Korean. Still, we are honored to support so many in leadership who come to us for advice and perspective, a role we take with the utmost seriousness and hold in deep confidentiality. So, with 2016 also came some new clients and a range of projects, among them working with the Pyeongchang Winter Olympics. Equally appreciated were the opportunities to share my thoughts and perspective to wider audiences, including groups like Kotra New York City and in the media, Branding in Asia, who both highlighted work in an interview as well as publishing a number of my commentaries. So, what's before us in 2017? Trump, the Korean presidential election, succession. Trump, a name and an uncertainty that surfaces often. I constantly feel questions both from Korean and American business leadership on the impact of the election and the administration. Who would know I'd be asked to speak in December about Trump to 45 Korean executives? I also found it interesting the diverse Trump scenarios tied to possible right negotiation of the North American Free Trade Agreement by way of the administration mulling over all the terms of these trade agreements. This has even surfaced in organizations like Hyundai Motors Global Strategy Summit in Korea. So, looking forward, trade agreements, U.S. military support for South Korea, and dealing with North Korea's nuclear buildup still top my list. On top of the trade agreement, my expectations is that we'll be looking at some of these trade negotiations much deeper by the Trump negotiation in the new year. But until there is a South Korean president in office with the impeachment waiting to be upheld by the courts, we'll see no major Trump-Korean president summit to drill deeper. The South Korean presidential election 2017. I'll be probing for this for the tone of the presidential hopefuls. 2017 election year in Korea. One candidate, for example, has already demanded the chaebol model be disbanded. In particular, my thoughts on this were just recently summed up in Forbes in a timely December Frank Aaron's article that remarked it was a likelihood of the incoming Korean president could ride to office on a wave of populist anger directed at the nation's elites. Frank goes on and says, still, a veteran South Korean business consultant, me, states, a new administration will need the chaebol support to drive the economy and jobs or quickly lose public support. Again, that was my contribution to that. I'd add we've experienced decades of love-hate relationship between the Korean groups and government. 1 minute mandating new rounds of regulations such as restrictions on mutual investment and loan guarantees to curtail the chaebol, the next minute persuading chaebol leadership to spur growth. In reality, the group need the support of Samsung, Hyundai, LG, and SK, among others, to create jobs, invest in R&D, and support the incoming president's initiatives to grow the economy in Korea. Now, less likely, considering the emergence of a more cynical generation that may threaten to upend the old system, nevertheless, seeing disruptive politics emerging globally, we could even see a president promising change but openly allying with the chaebol as engines of growth. So, two things could happen. We'll have to wait and see. That said, at least in the short run, presidential scandal era, I see the groups coming under pressure and laws and regulations designed to increase transparency and accountability of their family members. Finally, the succession issue. What stood out in recent National Assembly grilling of the top chaebol chairman, many men in their 70s, was the targeting of the now de facto head of Samsung, who has assumed his father's role. Now, with the mantle of Samsung now handed to the third generation of the Lee family, we may see similar at Hyundai and the other top groups. In fact, as I was writing this article, South Korea's textile giant Hyosung just announced with the year-end the ushering in a new era of the group's third-generation management. I expect more announcements like this to come in the following weeks. So what will this new generation bring forward? Well, Samsung's successor, J.Y. Lee, has promised to abolish the conglomerate's control tower, which they call the Future Strategy Office. And that was in response to criticism about the office's role in the group-wide business command and control operations. Now, no decisions or acquisitions were made into or entered into without this FSO scrutiny. On a side note, Hyundai Motor Group is one of the few groups that does not operate a de facto control tower. Unlike the more diversified chaebol, Hyundai's core business is automotive, and its affiliates are already sort of aligned for a common interest. Now, as for a suggestion at Korea's second largest conglomerate, Hyundai Motor Group, the heir, E.S. Chung, continues to take a more visible leadership role. For example, E.S. Chung has sought to break away from the old model of strictly Korean leadership team to a more diverse international team as part of his strategy to better position the brands. Now, more recently, he restructured the annual year-end global strategy meeting of 50 Hyundai and Kia Korean executives from overseas branches. Now, what stood out was the collaborative, open discussion-based structure of the summit versus the older, conservative, hierarchical format in which the heads of each of these overseas branches would give a one-way briefing to the chairman. We can only assume that E.S. Chung will continue to follow his design-loving passion and consensus-building management style in 2017. So, summing up, 2017 may be seen as a year of uncertainties, both domestically and Korea internationally, with the potential for a weakened global economy, more disruptive politics, and tightening of budgets and spending. The latter is concerning since cutbacks would only hamper sales in what will be a tough market. So, until next time, this is Don Southerton wishing you all the best and a Happy New Year.